I think nostalgia can be one of the most tricky things we have to deal with as we get older. I know I've definitely fallen to that many times. Things like different movies that I remember being just amazingly great when I was a kid aren't that great when I watch them now. Or the idea of going to like a Slipknot show. In my teens and 20s, that was awesome. I loved nothing more than to be in that chaotic, crazy mosh pit. You're shoulder to shoulder with people, you're basically smashed into each other, your eardrums are assaulted by double bass and shred guitar. Now, it still sounds fun, don't get me wrong, but I'm not gonna be on the floor. As I've learned, once you hit 30, things start to break down. Hell, I might even bring some earplugs because of all the damage I've already done. Now, another place that this happens quite often is gaming. And I hate to say it, but I think with My Sims, this happened again to me. I was really excited for this bundle, and it does live up to what it was, but maybe what it was wasn't that great. Or maybe it's just a relic of a limited past. Either way, let's talk about the My Sims bundle as on the Nintendo Switch. But before we do that, please hit that like and subscribe button. Help this channel grow, because it's already dying. Much like my will to live while playing the My Sims bundle. No, it's not that bad. So in the bundle, you essentially get two games, but honestly, it feels more like one game in a DLC. And it's not talking about the content of the My Sims Kingdom. There's quite a bit of content. It feels like the original game, just an added on part. And they essentially follow the same story, the same mechanics. Most of the stuff is kind of the same. So I'm just gonna kind of go over both of them at the same time, adding in little caveats for, the differences between the two. But essentially, the stories of both kind of also the same. In My Sims, you essentially go to a village that was once like poppin', like everyone was going there, everyone loved it, it was doing great. They had this builder who was just like making the place amazing, and essentially the builder just left one day and no one knows why. Sounds familiar, right? Like most of the cozy games, but hey, listen, this game came out a long time ago, so you can't dock it points for that. Anyway, though, you show up, and of course you're the builder now, and the town is basically desolate. There's only a few businesses and a couple residents, and your main goal when you first start is just to do tasks for these individuals to help their place look better, and maybe slowly start to attract new people to the town. Most of these tasks are relatively simple. They essentially want you to build them something that's gonna make their business or the town hall or whatever just look better or make things easier on them. And they give you a blueprint and they tell you what you're gonna need. And these things consist of essences, which are essentially things that you get for collecting fruit, for being nice to people. It's a kind of a weird system, but basically a lot of the interacting you do with the environment gives you these essences. You also gain essences and emotions from like interacting with the NPCs and the other town people. But this is where for me the game really started to get frustrating, super frustrating. You see, you have your blueprint, you have your task, you go to your workshop, select the task or blueprint that you want to work on, and it'll pull up like this outline of what the item is that you're making. And then you have your materials that you just fill in to these like ghost lines. And essentially, that sounds relatively easy and maybe even kind of cool, but it's not. One of the big reasons is because of the controls, and the way that you have to manipulate the item that you're working on will sometimes seem like you're putting things in the right spot, and then you turn it and you can see that you've completely went out of the lines and everything's mismatched and it just doesn't work. Or you can't really move the items like you want to. Like if you have to stack something, you just have to be in just the right spot for it to actually stack. And these issues are only made more difficult by the controls, as your right analog stick does not change the camera in any way, but it actually moves a hand around, and that's how you're supposed to interact with the actual materials. The left analog stick will kind of flip or rotate the item that you're working with. This is incredibly difficult to get used to, as moving the camera is actually the R1, L1 buttons, so getting used to the controls is its own pain in the butt. Not to mention, sometimes some of the tasks that you complete and you swear you've done everything that they said, you go, you take the item that you made to the person who's supposed to make it, and for some reason, they don't accept it. It doesn't continue on with the story. This happened to me in the My Sims game numerous times. In fact, I think one of the videos I'm showing for this is that exact thing happening with like a flower stand, and for some reason, Flower Chick just wouldn't take it. Now, I did appreciate, by the way, that in My Sims I was allowed to create like a serial killer. My guy is super weird looking. But essentially, though, even this is the main gameplay. This is what you do throughout the entire game, and it just gets so repetitive. And I believe that it does have some of the same repetition that like an Animal Crossing does. The big differences, though, is that what I think the pleasure some people would get out of this kind of game is the designing of things, decorating, getting into that whole mode. But it is so frustrating to actually make the items that you just want to get it done as quick as you can and move on. You don't even want to mess around with anything. Not to mention, the camera and moving the camera can totally make you dizzy. A lot of people I know have complained about like motion sickness with this game. Now, the other game, My Kingdom, which is essentially sort of the same thing, although in this game you are just a lowly peasant, and the king has this contest to see who's gonna be the next Wondelier. And surprise, surprise, it's you! And you essentially learn like what they consider magic, but it's essentially just the same way of building stuff. This does go a little bit further and does actually have a little bit more fun to it, as you do create more gadgets, more devices, and you don't have to deal with that dumb workshop or really the blueprints. You're essentially working on things as they sit, and you go from different islands all around your kingdom, helping people fix their problems and trying to make right what is wrong, hoping that your next leap will be your leap home. Oh wait, that's something else. Anyway, the My Kingdom experience is a lot better than the My Sims experience, and I would definitely prefer to just buy that game and to just play that one. I was very let down by the My Sims game, but I will say, like, they use the same assets. It's essentially the same gameplay. If you know one, you know the other, and while in My Kingdom, it was easier to build things and actually became somewhat fun, it also has its own problems and continues to have some of the problems that the other one had. It does get very repetitious. Sometimes, like the other one, it is hard to see what you're trying to build. The camera angles are awful. The field of view in both games is horrible as well, as it's just like really close to your character. And somebody like me, like I like to pan out a little bit. I like to kind of see where I'm going, and you really can't in this one. And so while I say that like the My Kingdom game is a little bit more fun and a little less frustrating, it is still frustrating at times, and it still is repetitious, and both games are incredibly simple though. I was gonna say easy, but they're not easy because of, well, just the dynamic that is the game and the way that it's completely made up. But the actual tasks, and if this game had like really great controls and great camera angles and everything, it would be super easy. It's a very simple, straightforward game that I honestly don't think is worth the money they're asking. And right now it is $39.99. Now, performance-wise, I never had any major issues, no crashes or anything of that nature. There was a little bit of lagging here and there, but it falls really low on my list of complaints. Honestly, this game is just not for me, and I don't think that there's a number of people who it is made for. One of the reasons why is just because it's so limiting. Like, when you have all the other games in the cozy game sphere that we have now that have so many options, this one just feels incredibly limited and linear, is there is very little to do outside of what you're directed to do. And on top of the subpar gameplay, you're also greeted with that price tag. So, I don't know, for me, I would give this like a 4 out of 10. It just wasn't it. Like, it just missed by a lot. I do remember playing this game when I was younger, and it was a lot of fun. But I think it's just one of those games that time has passed by. As we have so many more options, and games are very wide open, and you have so many different games, so many great indie games that are a lot cheaper, a lot more expansive, and aren't as limiting as this one. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the My Sims bundle on the Nintendo Switch. Let me know your thoughts. Is this a game that you played when you were younger? Or is this a game you're excited to play now? Did you miss it and now you want to check it out? Anything and everything down in the comment section is much appreciated. I love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.